Hello, children. This podcast is brought to you exclusively by Spotify, the best streaming platform for podcasts and music. You can check out their podcast charts, they're organized easily to help you find your next favorite pod. So, this episode, we've been getting so many malibags on career advice, dissatisfaction at work, especially during such an uncertain time. The future seems so bleak and it may be affecting your mental health, motivation, and overall happiness. That's why we decided to get the guru on finding success and happiness at work, my father, Gerry Bacarro. In this episode, we talk about his journey as a simple boy from Ozamiz, that's in Mindanao, who made his way to the top of the corporate world. He then shares tips on how to be a great employee, employer, and how to find some sanity and clarity during this pandemic. We then end the episode with him answering a malibag. Until now, he is my consultant. Among all his great attributes, I can say that it's his humility and integrity despite all his success that's most admirable. And I am excited that the podkids will learn a thing or two from the master, the OG, most famously known as Pancho and Vito's papi. Here's the episode with our papa, Gerry Bacarro.
Welcome to the Wake Up with Saab podcast.
We have a special guest today. It is...
I think it's the most important guest we've ever had.
Yes. Prepare to be blown away.
Oh my god.
By the genius that
by
is.
wisdom.
Oh my god.
So we have my papa. Okay. So papa, I guess the first question is, what moment did you say na okay, sorry. At what point was your most parang peak of your success in terms of career?
Okay. But before I answer that question, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate both of you.
Oh.
Sobra, I'm so incredibly proud of your achievement in your podcast in Spotify.
Thank you.
Sobra, grabe. Yeah. It's such a milestone. What point in my career that I would consider as my peak?
Yes.
I think when I was regional president of Pfizer
Okay.
for South Asia. And South Asia region was like India plus Southeast Asia. And for a time, kasama yung Korea, which was an odd man out.
Okay.
But I still don't understand why it was given to me. But
So you were handling how many countries?
couple, maybe 10.
Yeah, just 10 countries. Yeah. No big deal.
Okay. So you're handling 10 countries, and what was your day to day?
What does a country regional manager do? What would it entail? Would you be traveling a lot?
What is a
Yes.
country?
What is a country?
What does a regional manager do?
Okay. So if there's such a thing as a sales territory for reps, okay, then there is a district which is a collection of territories. Then you have a region, let's say Visayas or West Visayas. Then you have a country, the whole of the Philippines.
Yes.
Then you have a country head there.
Okay.
Okay. Now the regional president is in charge of the total output, the use of limited resources of the countries assigned to you to get to a goal. All right. My job was, as a regional head, my job was more strategic. I made sure that I knew the key priorities in each country, which were the hot buttons in each country to drive sales and profits. And then that's where I would focus my attention and support my country heads. But even among the countries, I would prioritize them according to their contribution to total sales and profits.
Yeah.
So there would be countries where I could only visit like once a year or twice a year. But there are countries like in India, for example, where I need to be there at least once every 2 months. I need to show up and see.
What year was this happening? Like, what's the how? I want to know, like, how old was Jim when this was happening?
Oh, I had my first experience to be a regional head was in 1998. Jim was 11 years old.
11.
Okay. I was then made in charge of Indonesia, Philippines, and Korea. And then I was with Warner Lambert then. So I was in charge of 3 countries. And then when Warner Lambert was acquired by Pfizer, so I went back to Pfizer. So I was made to manage only the Philippines, which was a bigger Philippine business because of the combined Warner Lambert and Pfizer.
Yeah.
So I did the country head job again
Okay.
for about 4 or 5 years. And then as I was entertaining the thought of retiring early at 50 years old, I said, I think I have enough of this. I want to pursue other things. I was promoted to regional director for Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia.
Okay.
And then after that, I became regional president for more countries. So there were 2 regional presidents for Asia. One was North, which was who was responsible for China and Taiwan and Hong Kong, and the rest was mine.
So, okay, so it's a big scope
Yeah.
in short, diba? Can you take us back to your origin story? Because, yours is really a success story, no? So, you were the head of 10 countries, you're talking to the biggest bosses, blah blah blah. But that wasn't, diba? That wasn't just like that didn't happen overnight. No. So from the time where you grew up and what type of place was it, and what were the opportunities? What were you imagining nung time na yun?
Were you thinking that you would be a regional head?
No, no. I grew up in Ozamiz. That's in North Mindanao. It's it used to be the center of North Mindanao, pero it was overtaken by Cagayan de Oro. But I was there till I was high school. When I was high school, I toyed with the idea of
Being a doctor.
being a pilot first, and then a lawyer, because my father was a judge and a lawyer and a businessman. So I actually was about to enroll in UP, and I was a scholar in UP.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes.
You were valedictorian.
Yes, I was valedictorian in my class in 1973. I think we were a class of 340.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was a university scholar in UP. But as I was visiting UP with my mother, and I went around the campus, I got scared because this was 1973. This was after so many demonstrations and riots in Diliman.
Yeah.
So the buildings were just so dilapidated.
Oh.
All right. I was supposed to enroll in BA because after that my other plan was to be a lawyer. I told my mama I cannot study here.
Especially you weren't from
Yes,
Manila,
yeah,
Metro
yeah.
Manila.
I was a provinciano.
So just to clarify for our younger listeners, this was the martial law era.
Yes, martial law was declared in 1972, in September of 1972. I was in Manila for my college in April of 1973.
Okay.
Okay.
So less than a year. So the martial law tenor was still very, very strong. So I didn't want to go to UP. So, and then I heard that my other friend in high school is in Ateneo. So I went to Ateneo with my mother. But Ateneo is very expensive. So I told my sister who is in the States, I said, I want to study in Ateneo. But she said, the only way that you can study in Ateneo is if you take up medicine.
Okay. Because
What did she mean? Why?
Because she would love me to be in the US.
Because she was in medicine also.
No, she's a nurse.
She's a nurse in.
Yeah. So she said, okay, I will pay for your tuition, etc. Provided you'll be a doctor.
and also
she helped pay for your
Oh yes,
education.
yes.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, of course.
and ano pala, during that time, it was like if parang it was kumbaga it was such a different time, diba? It was very straight laced. Like parang
Doctor,
be a doctor,
lawyer.
be a
Oh,
lawyer,
yeah,
be
yeah.
a professional. And
There's
you,
no like graphic designer.
No, very few pigeonholes.
Oh.
Very few choices. Because that's how we were brought up in the province. Right? So I said, okay. So without thinking much about it. So I took it up. It was a tough course, but I did survive. But as early as third year, I said, this is not for me.
Oh.
This is not for me. But I was a little scared with my sister. So I said, I'll just pursue it.
okay.
But after I finished it, I said, no, I can't do this. I cannot fake it because I don't have the calling. I may get through the academics part, but I don't have the heart for it. I don't want to finish it and then in the end regret that, why did I take it? Right? So I stopped right there and I continued taking subjects in Ateneo.
How did you tell your sister?
Well, I said, I can't. I don't have the heart for it. I don't have the calling.
She understood naman.
Yeah, and we were a big class, and only 13 of us survived. From a class of like 80 or
Wow.
80 or 90, only 13 of us survived.
Oh,
But
that happens in college.
yeah. So so after that I went to AIM, and
So AIM, you took your MBA.
yes,
It's more of a business school.
yes, graduate school.
So yung what I think is nung time na yun, what was your thinking? Was it because people were doing that? Kasi now there's a joke nga now parang parang kumbaga now because there's so many options, 'di ba? And people are so informed. High school pa lang they're thinking about their MBA. For those who are very well informed on those things. And I'm sure nung time na yun, it wasn't like that, diba? It wasn't parang after college you have to start earning, especially for you because diba yun nga, you came from the province, you wanted to stay in Manila, diba? For sure.
Yes.
Was that a goal of yours na parang hindi na ako babalik sa Ozamiz?
I wasn't looking that far. But I told myself that if I have to advance in life, I have to get a good education in Manila. Okay. And so when I went to AIM, my vision then was I want to be a successful professional. But it was that vague. There was not much clarity in it.
Pero how did you know about the option?
Oh, because when I started, because it was my first choice, remember? If had I gone to UP.
Ama.
PA.
Okay, and then when I took up, business subjects, and that's where I really felt it was like it fits like a glove in my hand.
Okay.
I said, this is for me,
Yes.
right? Because it came so smoothly.
Naturally.
There was no conflict in me, and so I knew that it was the right thing for me.
Okay.
Grabe, this is great kasi ang dami naming mga listeners who are always asking like, how do I know if it's right for me?
Yeah.
There's a feeling talaga.
Yeah, and you know the psychology of the 20s is that you actually stake the world. You don't know where you want to go, and so you make mistakes along the way.
And it's fine. That's normal.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. It's fine. So that you can really rule out which ones are not for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
But at least try.
Oh,
diba?
yes,
Kesa
yes.
you're just scared because you
Yeah.
don't know if it's right for you. At least try.
yeah, and make a theoretical choice that maybe this one is for me. But since you have already, burned the finger and say, oh, that's not for me. I want to be here and really do a great job on this one, on this choice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and then, so after, kasi si Sab, well, ako si Sab, I know these stories pero si Sab doesn't know. Parang, for her, it was like, she knows na, oh, you were the regional president, you were very successful. Was there a long climb up rin in your professional career?
I had a rapid rise. I remember my boss in Pfizer, because I joined Pfizer as a management trainee in May of 1980, July of 1980. And after that, he said, you don't have much experience, so I want you to carry the bag, etc., and go into marketing, blah blah blah. And I was on the fast lane. Those were his words. And he said, "You had a meteoric rise," and it was like a bloodbath in the marketing of Pfizer at the time. And my contemporaries would remember that. And I was like the last man standing. And I was like promoted every like every 1 to 2 years. But I didn't have this long, vision of I want to be head of the region. No. My vision was, okay, I think I'm getting good at this. So I want just to get to the next job, but I want to focus 90% of what I'm doing on what I'm supposed to deliver. Because if I do a good job on my deliverables in my present job, then that thing will come to me. So I don't work and with my eye,
On the
on the other
promotion,
side,
oh.
on the other job, on the longer term.
Why do you think, Papa, bakit kaya, like, for our generation, like, ako, when I went into corporate, no, lahat ng kabatch ko, pag day one pa lang, iniisip nila agad na they're miserable agad with the current position. And they're already looking at, kailan ako mapopromote? So every day doesn't become a learning experience or I
want to do good. I want to perform well.
Parang it's more of I just need to do this para lang para so I can get to the
Yes,
next step.
yeah.
Why do you think, kasi during that time, it wasn't like that, no?
There was less pressure, you would say, do you think?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. So, I think my generation didn't have much information, right? And we didn't have an abundance of things. So there was really a training on delayed gratification. So our choices were few, and we were trained to be tenacious. We can't have this unless we produce. You have to get the first honors, something like that. You have to work. You have to sweat it out. There was no such thing as, can I have this phone, and then you get it like in the afternoon. You ask for it in the morning, you get it in the afternoon. No, you have to sweat it out. So
Hindi pwedeng ilala-move or i-grab.
no, no, and I still remember that I had a very tough boss, and I said, why am I persevering, in this situation? And your mom would know. And I was really strong. I was very tenacious, and looking back, I knew that I had very few options then. I only knew like two or three other pharmaceutical companies. I was not looking at the J&J of this world. I was not looking at Unilever. I was just looking at, okay, this is Pfizer and the two other major competitors. Maybe I can join that company because they're offering a better better deal, right? And you know, the training of delayed gratification. I think the generation of today, in contrast, has the opposites. You have so much information, you're swimming in the ocean of information, and there's instant gratification. With just one click at the speed of thought, you get something, you get an information. No, you know, we had to take a bus and get an information on whether just an application form, and you have to line up in the street.
Yeah.
And I guess being focused was much easier back then.
Yes.
Kasi imagine you're
Good
going to
point.
the
Yeah.
office, you're in your cubicle or
Right.
whatever, and there's nothing like you're not being updated on like what your friend is doing on the other side of
in Spain.
in Spain,
Or
traveling,
in
Yes.
Singapore.
getting
Yeah.
engaged, and then you're at your desk thinking, why is that not happening to me?
Right.
Diba? That can bring on some sort of insecurity, diba, na you might not be at the right place. But back then, siguro, you're just like going through the motions and just, okay, I'm gonna focus on this and I'll listen to my boss.
That's so true, Sam.
Yeah.
Even in the communications, you know, it took like 2 years to get a PLDT phone line. So there were no phones, right? So once you parted ways with your college friends, the next time you'll see them is like years away. So you don't know what they're doing.
Grabe talaga PLDT. Kaya dapat, siguro kung may globe noon. Joke.
Pero
Hashtag
that's
sponsor.
a good point, because I think the reason why the increase in parang employee dissatisfaction has really exponentially increased over the years is because you're comparing yourself now with
Yes.
your friends,
Right.
and of course everything is, diba, the grass is greener always on the other side. So if you're working at let's say you're working at Pfizer and then you know your friends at J&J, it's so easy to just hear or see like, wow, ganda ng office nila. Or wow,
Yes.
Yeah.
he's home at 6 p.m. Ha? Bakit siya naka-gimmick?
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Naka-gimmick siya. Akin toxic yung work environment ko. So, agad-agad, there's a feeling of I need to escape.
Yeah.
So, what I want to go through then is, what were the hardships that you did? Parang ano yung stress na that you really had to persevere? You were saying na you had to stick it out. Ano yung mga examples na yun? Do you have any stories na, oh my gosh, ang hirap nito at hindi ko na kaya yung stress?
My biggest stresses were actually about tough bosses. I had 17 bosses.
Wow.
Yeah, and I could still remember their faces and their strengths and their full names. Bosses who were very unreasonable and who were very insecure. Asking for something unreasonable, and because in business, you're only good as your last home run. Okay, you do good, let's say in 2020, for example. So in 2021, it's a clean slate altogether. So if you do poorly in 2021, you don't expect a forgiving boss. That's how tough it is. So they don't, they forget about the stars that you did, the home runs that you did in 2020. It's another reckoning altogether. So you have bosses like that, and of my 17 bosses, I can only two foreigner bosses who were really tough. And there are certain things like, in their personal styles and lifestyles that I had very tough conflict with.
Like the way they communicated, the way...
Yeah, and even what they do in the office. And I know those things. So I felt so conflicted that why am I working for this guy when he's doing this and that? It's tough.
So, nung time na yun ba, maybe, nung time na yun, how you managed your bosses, was it completely different from how do you think it is now? Now bosses are so careful about, oh no, um
They're gonna leave.
how they're
They're gonna
feeling, how
jump
they're
ship.
ganyan. Parang was it an open line? Was there a different culture back then on how employees and employee, or it
And I
really
guess we
depends
have
on the
to.
boss?
I think we have to note rin na most of your bosses were foreigners, no?
Most of them.
No. Kasi iba ata talaga yung kultura eh.
Yeah. Well, I had this mantra that my job is to make the job of my boss easier. And I make sure that I tell that to my boss.
That's why you always got promoted.
No, that to earn his trust.
Yeah, that's a good
Right? And I
thing.
said, give me, let's agree on the objectives. And I want to make sure that I'll give you less problems and easier for you. And I, I avoid giving surprises, especially the bad ones. So I make sure that I communicate properly and maybe set the stage for something bad. Soften the ground before I break the news.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, these are good tips for our listeners.
Baka you can apply to Linya Linya. I need employees like that.
Yeah, I mean, being an employee nga, sabi nga ni Jim, I think the problem talaga is, it's not really a problem because I can understand na we're thinking of our own well-being talaga. Kasi things are very stressful for itong generation talaga na the mental health crisis is a real thing. It's very, very real. But I guess it wouldn't hurt to give some tips on how to be a better employee. Na, 'di ba? Kasi I think that's a big way to get up nga in life,
Yeah.
in your career.
Before we get there, I just wanted to ask you lang. So what are the parang core values that have led to your success?
When I was younger, I was driven. I was driven to succeed, to achieve something, and to be superior in my performance. I was driven by that. The other one is, I was I re- I was championing fairness at work. You do this, you're fine. If you did that, then you're not fine. And I wanted to make it a level playing field for people. And I was helping others. And that's another mantra for me, that I wanted to tap people's potentials and get the best out of them. So being driven with ambition, with a drive for fairness, and also helping others achieve their own goals. And of course, I was prayerful. I, and I thank my mother for that, and of course your mommy, because we've been prayerful since then.
That's great.
And to your question,
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, it's a two-part question. It's tips on how to be a good employee and how to be a good boss.
My generation, the baby boomers, we were different. In fact, in my last few years in corporate life, I sponsored a seminar on how to manage millennials, because the mindset is different. Before, it's like a two-way. You have to be like a boss, etc. While the millennials would like to be coached, would like to have a mentor. They would like to have a person that they can confide to,
Yes.
right? And a person who can unravel their vision in life and help them achieve it. It's a different story than for most of the years that I was in corporate life. So for you to be a good employee in this time,
Yes.
I think at first, apart from focusing on your goals, you have to buy into the vision of the company.
So number one step would be to only work for a company that you believe in.
Yes, and a company whose core values would agree with yours.
Yes.
And that's why, I would consider myself a lifer in one company.
What's a life?
A lifer who spends most of his life in one company.
Okay.
He's
Oh.
the parang Kobe Bryant of pharmaceuticals.
Oh,
Oh,
because
my-
Kobe was just in the
Like-
Lakers. Okay.
Right.
Kobe Bryant of Pfizer.
Because I was comfortable that this is the company for me because the core values of integrity and performance and leadership, respect for people, were very strong. So if you had put me in a different company, like a company that is in a casino
Like a pogo.
or a pogo, I'll die.
Yeah.
I'll die there. I will not survive. I will not survive in a few weeks. So make sure that you buy into the vision, that your core values are aligned with the core values of the company, and be a team player. And have this idea that you need to add value to the company.
I
What-
think, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, pero I think one of the issues, quite for me personally, what I felt was some companies fail in, although you buy into the vision, I want to join Linya Linya, okay? Or when I joined those companies, like I want to join them because, I agree with their vision, whatever. But some companies, because they're so big, they fail in that department, which I think is the more important chunk now for yung generation namin and millennials is, what is my value in this team? I need to feel like I'm contributing something. Where do you think nagkakamali yung mga saan kaya
Employees.
nagkakamali ang bosses at ang these major corporations in not allowing them to feel that way, or at least
It has to start from the top. If the country head or if the company believes in employee engagement, and it's been proven in several studies that if employees are engaged, profitability would be 30 or 40% better,
Yes.
right? Then it would cascade down, with all the HR interventions. Like, for example, creating an environment where people are free or can be creative. For
Yes.
example, having town hall meetings, having check-in surveys on how they feel.
And not just treating them like robots.
Right.
No.
And be interested in the details of their ambition.
I feel like weird din kasi yung ibang employers na they don't want you to feel important kasi they don't want you to ask for a raise to feel like you're valuable.
Yeah.
Diba may ganong I feel like there's a twisted way of thinking there.
Ako naman, in my experience, kasi I'm not a lifer. Diba? I went through different
You're
companies.
a jumper.
The most of,
Hopper.
yeah, and I think the biggest problem talaga is, diba, you're the one who said that, Papa, parang the one that it's not companies that make you quit, it's your boss.
Partly that's true.
Ako naniniwala ako dun eh.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
kunwari, let's say I was part of 3 very major, very big companies that, are kunwari multinational and, everything. Kita mo naman eh, all the things that you're saying, Papa, like, they would have like these employee engagement programs. All these things, they're really from the top making the effort. Pero if your direct boss is a sadistic weirdo, diba? Or a selfish, insecure loser, then you're really gonna walang mangyayari talaga.
Now that you mentioned that, it reminds me of a principle I learned that the most important supervisory job, managerial job, is the first line supervisor, because it makes or breaks people.
Yes.
If you have a good supervisor and you're fresh from college, you can break or make that guy.
Yeah.
because you can either inspire or crush that person, like your experience. So having good first line supervisors would would have great dividends for the company
Tips
because
dividends. Just for our listeners. I'm trying to be like a
well, it's a payback.
yes. Okay.
It's a payback.
So what would you say to someone who says, okay, I believe in the vision of the company. Okay? I'm all in. But my boss is a crazy loser.
I feel like that's how most people feel about
Ne,
their bosses, right?
what would be your advice sa ganon?
You have to seek the advice of a best friend in the office on what to do, how to go about it. You can, if you're so desperate already, then before checking with HR and talk to the people in HR, attempt to have a conversation with your boss. I think your generation can do that.
Yeah.
Not my generation, because like we were so timid, especially when we were just 1 or 2 years in our work. No, but your generation are more assertive.
Parang 1 month pa lang ata.
Oh, asking for a tough conversation already. And that's why I want to go back to Saab's point that if for you to be a good employee, and it's not going to be a perfect world out there, you need to build the ability to bounce back, because there will be dips and low points. There will be ups and downs, and you need to have that resiliency in you for you to get up and walk again, and then you can develop that.
And I guess in answering that question, we were able to answer naman what makes a good boss, diba? It's someone who really nurture. I mean, not super mothering, pero nurturing pa rin the potential of
Yeah.
the employee.
A good boss needs to have a good balance, especially with our culture, because you cannot be seen as someone that's too soft-hearted.
That's why I can't be a boss. I can't manage people. I'm just too, okay ka lang? What can I do for you?
Gusto mo ng iPad?
Gusto mo na, pahinga ka lang, okay lang. Ice cream ka muna.
I have this advice before for new managers. Sinasabihan ko sila, I'd rather that you start tough, and that's your default behavior.
That's true. That's
All right?
very true.
And then later, pwede kang lumuwag. Okay? And people will appreciate it. Oh, wow, we work so hard, and this boss has a soft spot in his heart, and he's so considerate.
It's harder the other way
The
around.
other way around is bad, because when tough times come and a soft-hearted guy would become an autocrat, they say, that's not natural. This guy is, we know this guy is a lemon. So the credibility is not as high.
And I think yung mahirap nga sa ganun, if you start like very soft and and then when you react to bad things by panicking and biglang you need to be forceful na, people will lose respect parang because you're supposed to command the ship, especially when there's a storm.
Yeah.
Diba? Why are you the one out here screaming na, ay di, malulunod na tayo. Diba?
Yeah.
So
That's a good tip, Papa. About managing people.
So I think now the world is now different. So we've been talking about millennials, ganyan, pero now post COVID.
Not
Sorry. Mali. I have
currently COVID.
Yeah, currently COVID pala. Here this is my take. Okay. What drove your success nga tama was hard work, and for sure, as in I know
Integrity.
I know si Papa integrity, like from the simplest things like managing the house, making decisions for us kids, and whatever. It was always about integrity. But the one thing that you always pushed sa akin was you always said, Jim, kailangan, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 3 years?
Yes.
And during that time, it was a tough question to ask kasi Gusto ko nagpe-PlayStation ako. Ganun, parang ganun lang yung mind ko eh, di ba? But to have that mentality, you know, I didn't know it until I was actually running na my business, di ba? Parang very natural na parang every detail in my day, I would have to ask that question. Therefore, I would learn how to prioritize. I'd learn how to where to put my energy in. So, the reason why I bring this up is because now that the world is so unsure, what is your advice about, you know, vision setting and creating a long-term plan for a world that feels like there is no
Point.
there is no future.
Well, firstly, I would so look forward to the day, and I hope I'm still around by then, that you would be asking Pancho and Vito about their vision.
Oh my gosh. What's your 5-year
5 year?
plan?
Well, depends.
Buy an
What's-
iPad.
What's a plan?
What's a plan? There is this buzzword in business that today's world is characterized by VUCA, VUCA. It's volatility, uncertainty, uh,
Kayod.
chaotic. Okay, okay, and then A is ambiguous.
Okay.
Okay. So my advice is to take the future in bite sizes. So don't think about what will I be in 3 years' time. Doesn't work that way anymore. It has to be like, what do I need to achieve like in the next 6 months?
Short term.
Short term. But keep in mind, you park it at the back of your mind that, you know, I still want to be like a department head someday. But I need to just focus on the next 6 months or next 6 to 12 months and do a good job with what I'm assigned to do. And as I said, you know, the ability to bounce back is really important. Some people are once they reach a peak and then they fall. Some people are not able to bounce back, and that's really hard. I've seen people like that. But you know, especially with your generation, you're so bombarded by what's going on with your friends, and you have so much information, and you can easily be distracted and derailed with so many unfavorable negative things.
But yes, and I think the good thing rin though is that like with all this information, those with it goes along rin naman with the values that you said eh. If you're resilient, if you know how to persevere, you can stick to something, while then you can actually maximize this new world of information and innovation, because you could that's the big difference eh. Before, when in this was a few years ago, pero like in 2009, if I lose my job, I felt like, oh no, I'm done. I think what this generation, what's beautiful rin about for this generation is that they can reinvent themselves anytime they want.
There are resources.
Parang kumbaga, because there's so many avenues na. It's not like before na parang kung kay Papa, it was like the extreme na you get a job, if you don't do that, you can't eat. Mine is, if you have to get a job, if you keep quitting, then no one will hire you na.
Yes.
Gross. Kadiri yung CV mo.
Yeah.
This generation, that's what I always say na parang ang swerte nyo, because there's so many options. There's so many startups. There's so many, and also there are so many avenues nga na you can actually earn for yourself. Diba?
Actually, maraming nagsastart na businesses ngayon because of the pandemic. And ikaw, Jim, being a business owner, I think pa rin, the reason for the success of your company is because you were, I wouldn't say the best employee, but you had a lot of employee experience. Diba?
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to throw in a framework which might be useful to you and to your listeners. And this is about the psychology of the decades and how that would relate to um starting all over again or getting to a new job, etc. So, the psychology of the 20s, irrespective of whether you're a Gen Z or a millennial or a baby boomer, is that you are staking the world. It's okay to make mistakes. All right. But when you are in your 30s, that's the decade when you work the hardest. And even if you have transferred from one company to another, it is important that when you are in your 30s, you have a narrower focus already on what industry and the job that you are good at and would love to do. Because otherwise, you would not build up your skills towards mastery. Because by the time you get to your 40s, you need to be reaping the success already. You need to be harvesting some of those things that you have worked for in your 30s. So just make sure, this is just an advice that, when you are in your 30s, if you have if you have like if you have tried doing, let's say, you are in entertainment, okay, and if you are failing there, don't go to the construction industry,
Yeah.
right? So you need to have a closer focus now, because where am I good at, and have an align that with what's available, and just stay the course. Because in the 30s, that's when you work the hardest, because at the back of your mind there are certain timetables that you need to meet, right?
Yes.
um
I super agree with that, and that's one of the things that you always, in fairness to you, you were very gentle with your approach in nudging me away from making those decisions. I remember, like, Papa, I want to own a restaurant, or parang, and then biglang 6 months, I want to do this. I want to get into, um, I want to join this company. I want to be a creative. I just want to play music. Tama eh. And I think even with business, kaya nga we always mention in the podcast may yung inaano nga namin yung tara business tayo. Because it's really learning to say no is one of the biggest developments in my career and in my life. Learning to say no, because for the longest time that I was an employee, I would get like so many people saying, "Uy, Jim, gawa tayo ng ganito," or "gawa tayo ng ganito, business, business, business." And I was always be like, "Oh, that sounds so cool. That sounds so cool." Pero parang looking back, like, really? Did I really want to get into gravel? Or did I really want to get into loans or whatever? Parang, so I super agree with that. Na if you're in the entertainment business, kaya I link it back to what I said kanina, na whatever field there is, ang dami ng options. So if you've decided to go into medicine, for example, not medicine, mahirap yun. Why entertainment or creative, a creative field. Don't think that the jump from being okay, creative ako, tas biglang gusto ko maging contractor.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that jump it's a decision that will require a lot of sacrifice and a lot of self-evaluation.
The buzzword nga now is, diba? Pivot.
yes.
So if it's not working, just kind of pivot a little bit. Look at yung skill mo talaga that is keeping you afloat, and
Right.
maximize that.
And for me, when you are in your 30s, make an effort already to identify where your sweet spot is. Diba? And that sweet spot is something I would describe as something that makes you authentic, something that, your passions and your gifts can be fully utilized, and you enjoy doing it. Rather than, force fit something just because it's the uso. Uso ngayon, let's say,
Water refilling
water
station.
refilling, punta tayo doon. Oh, di ba? O sige, pag ano tayo?
Milk tea.
Milk tea
Milk tea.
business.
Di ba? Huwag ka muna pumasok doon. Di ba? Basta focus ka on your sweet spot and be good at it. And you will find joy in doing that.
Wow.
That's great.
That's great.
And when you enjoy doing it, I think it was Confucius who said that if you enjoy doing it, you hardly work a day in your life.
But what about ano? Huh?
I'm gonna try to pull up a letter from one of our listeners about career.
It's called
Okay.
we call it a malibag.
Yeah.
So we get mail letters basically.
Alright.
Before that, so that's advice for your 30s, no? Pero actually, majority of our listeners are in their 20s. So you're saying this is the time yana that they should keep,
Yeah,
You know.
staking the world.
keep trying.
Yeah, until you find your fit.
Okay.
You know, job wise, company wise.
So that the principle of yung in your 30s, I don't think it applies rin sa 20s. Kasi,
No.
'di ba? Parang if you want to start a chicken roasting restaurant and then 6 months you want to become an interior decorator, that's fine. Tama? You
In
can
your-
make
in
big
your
swings
20s.
in your 20s.
Yeah, because it's when you can really rule out that I've tried that before. I'm not good there.
I'm not good.
happy there.
Yeah.
I'll stay away from it. I know it because you narrow your choices already because you're getting to know yourself better.
What are the pitfalls that someone in their 20s, can easily get into? Parang kasi, di ba, we know a lot of people that they reach their 30s, they still don't know what they're doing. Why do you think that happens?
Maybe maybe peer pressure. Number one. Number two, not thinking through things. Number three, maybe not confiding or consulting with someone. Everyone, I think, especially in the 20s and 30s, would need a mentor. Even informal mentors or confidant or or soul. What do you call that? Soul partner. What do
Soul,
Proprietorship.
hindi.
No,
Sorry, I wasn't listening to you guys.
Soulmate.
Soulmate.
Soul proprietor.
Soulmate in work. Right? Professional soulmate.
A work wife.
A work
Pero
wife. or
that can
something
also
like-
be a pitfall, di ba? If yung mentor mo ay palpak. Kasi
Yeah.
I have friends that are in their 20s, yung ginawa nilang mentor, pare, gawa tayong popcorn business, ganun. And then so that's a potential pitfall rin.
Then you made a wrong choice in your mentor. Then you do a better job next time of choosing the right mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's because there's so much thinking that goes along. I mean, ikaw lang nag-iisip, mali kaya ito ginagawa ko. But if you sound it off to someone else, then by just articulating it would clarify whatever is in your mind.
That's very true.
Di ba?
Very true.
Try doing that. You try to express someone to your partner. I say, oo nga pala, no? I've tried that before. When I had difficult issues at work, and I would describe it to your mommy, and mommy doesn't know the details, but just the act of articulating my problem would lead me to my aha moment. I say, oh yeah, tama.
That's always what happens with Jim.
Yeah.
Right?
Oo,
Yeah.
ganun kami ni Saab.
Yeah, it creates an aha moment because you articulate it.
Okay, let's end it with just a simple question related to career. I wonder how you would answer. It's a very, I don't know, I'm thinking this person is a Gen Z or millennial. So he says, I'm Neil, one of your pod kids. Sorry, Niel. Okay. This anxiety and depression na nafe-feel ko started last month. Sorry, the subject is career advice, how to deal with anxiety. Started last month, mid-ECQ because of COVID. I'm currently working as a company accountant sa Australian client. And yung job ko doon lately makes me so anxious and I cry every time I wake up na ito na naman, mag-work na naman ako up naman ako sa boyfriend ko, pero I feel like sometimes hindi niya ako naiintindihan. And nakaka-pressure na laging sinasabi to be thankful dahil nga may work pa ako. Kakayanin daw naman. I understand nag-try siya to cheer me up and left up yung emotions ko, but it turns out na mas nape-pressure ako. Bakit ba ganito na-feel ko? Gusto ko nang umalis, gusto ko nang mag-quit. I listened to some of your episodes about career, when to quit, and it makes me realize na hindi talaga healthy to. Like, parang doon na lang umiikot yung mundo ko. Like, napapaniginipan ko na yung work. Natatakot na ako matulog sa weekends kasi alam ko, lilipas na naman at mag-Monday na naman. Hi, ang toxic ng nafe-feel ko. Super daming thoughts sa utak ko. Please give me advice on how to handle these thoughts and what's the best thing to do. Kakatapos ko lang mag-pass ng resume ko and nag-worry ako ngayon kung may mag-hire sa akin given na may pandemic ngayon. Super torn ako kasi gusto kong lumaban pero worth it pa ba? Kasi parang di na healthy or mag-quit na lang ba ako? Pero paano if mas worse ang maging work ko after this? Okay. So
Well, that's a very real situation. And at the end of the day, the person has to make the decision herself. Ang ma-advise ko lang dyan is for you to find out why are you unhappy? Why are you so conflicted? Diba? And how much longer can you take it?
she needs to pinpoint.
Yeah, she needs to pinpoint why are you unhappy? Is it because of the core values of your client? Is it because you are being exploited? Is it because you are underpaid, or for other reasons? And if you say, okay, and then you ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen to me if I would hang on in the next 6 months? What's the worst thing? So you paint that picture in your mind and ask yourself the next question, is that something that I can accept?
And should she also think of what's the worst thing that could happen if I quit?
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes.
Have you ever done a pros and cons list, Papa? Is that still a thing?
Absolutely, it does. And a worst scenario thinking is very important because you say, kaya ko pa ito eh. Kaya kong sikmurahin ito in the next 6 months just for me to get by and for me to get, some job offers from other companies. Pero after that time, then it's about self-respect already. Right?
I get it.
It's about self-respect. I can't do this anymore. Pinagbigyan ko na ito ng additional 6 months. Hindi ko na kaya ito. I'm not authentic anymore. So I'd rather be in a company where I am less paid but I'm happy.
Oh, okay.
And where I feel in flow. I am natural ako. Hindi ako fake. I'm not faking it. And I like to have the energy to get up in the morning to see my workmates.
It's all about weighing things, no?
Yeah,
Prioritizing.
yeah. How much longer can you take it? And if you say, I cannot take it anymore, then do the right thing.
Sa bagay, if you think of the worst thing that could happen in 6 months, if she holds on or if she doesn't, and then you weigh kung mas kaya ba kung magstay ako, yung worst thing, or sobrang hirap ba kung yung hindi ka makakakain or makakapag-pay ng rent if you quit right now.
If it is that bad, then you have to develop a little more tenacity. Because you have very basic needs that need to be filled.
Tama.
Right.
Depends on your on a specific situation.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Papa.
Yeah, sure.
Good advice.
Sure.
Yeah. This was great.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
I had pleasure. It was nice.
This is so you can catch Papa on Finding Happy with Happy Dad. He is taking over my podcast. Thanks, Papa.
I had
This was
fun.
great.
I had fun.
Thanks,
Really.
Papa.
Thank you.
You should
Thank
guest
you, sir.
again and we'll make you answer love questions naman.
Oh no.
Because that's another topic I want to ask you about. Your love story with Mommy, who actually was also a valedictorian. That's a very interesting story.
Okay.
There will be
That
a part
might make
2.
me blush. So. Okay.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
Papa.
Thank you too. Okay.